Have you ever stopped to think about how one single, really personal decision can send out ripples that literally change the course of history? Well, today we're going to jump into an incredible story about just that. It's about how one vow made from a place of deep, deep longing kicked off a chain reaction that would go on to reshape an entire kingdom. So let's get into how it all started.
So that's the big question we're tackling here. I mean, it sounds kind of impossible, doesn't it? But what we're about to see is that sometimes the most powerful changes start with a really quiet, personal act of faith. We're going to trace this whole journey from one heartfelt prayer all the way to the anointing of a legendary king. And our story really kicks off right here with the spark. This is all about the deeply personal vow of a woman named Hannah. You know, it's her individual journey of faith that basically lights the fuse for everything that comes next. So you've got this woman, Hannah, living in a town called Ramah, and her heart just ached for a child. It was her deepest desire. So with this longing fueling her, she travels to a place called Shiloh, which was where the Tabernacle, the very center of worship, was located. And it's right there that she poured her heart out and brought her prayer directly to God. Her journey really unfolds in these 4 key steps. It all starts with that prayer, right? But then she does something pretty extraordinary. She makes this solemn vow. If God would just give her a son, she promised she would dedicate him right back to God's service for his whole life. Well, her prayer gets answered, and her son Samuel is born. And let me tell you, Hannah did not forget her promise. And man, this is where you really feel the weight of what she promised. Following through meant taking her little boy Samuel and leaving him in the care of Eli, the priest of the tabernacle. I mean, can you imagine the faith that took? She would only get to see him once a year when she'd visit and bring him a new robe. It was just an immense sacrifice, but she really trusted that God had a bigger plan for him. So that sacrifice, that incredibly powerful vow, it doesn't just end there. It creates this echo. And that brings us to the story of Samuel's obedience, a life completely shaped by his mother's faith. And he becomes the next crucial link in this amazing chain of events. So Samuel has this totally unique childhood. He's literally growing up at the spiritual heart of the nation, and he's just soaking up wisdom, not only from the head priest, Eli, but also from the Sons of Levi, the priestly tribe that was in charge of taking care of the sacred Ark of the Covenant. Now, what's so fascinating here is the contrast in his world. On one side, you've got the Sons of Levi, devout, dedicated, real spiritual teachers. But on the other side, you've got Eli's own sons, who were, frankly, a mess. They were corrupt, they were disrespectful. So Samuel had to figure out his way through this really complex environment and choose which example to follow. And you know what? He chose the right path. As just a boy, he learns to really hear and obey God's voice. And that foundation leads him to become one of Israel's most respected prophets and judges. And then, in this beautiful full-circle moment, after the tabernacle at Shiloh is destroyed, he goes back to his hometown of Ramah and starts a school of prophets, basically creating a whole new center for worship and raising up a new generation. Okay, so we've gone from Hannah's quiet vow to Samuel's national leadership, and now we get to the roar. This is the next massive ripple effect. This is where Samuel's obedience leads him to make a choice that will completely define the future of the kingdom. So Samuel, listening to God, gets sent on this mission to anoint the next king. But here's the thing. It's all done in secret. The chosen one isn't some great warrior or a prince. He's a young shepherd boy named David. The whole thing was so hush-hush that David's own family probably had no clue what was really happening. Since he was a musician, they most likely just figured he was getting initiated into Samuel's school of prophets.
And check this out, because this little detail is huge. It shows a crucial symbolic difference. The first king, Saul, he was anointed by Samuel with oil from a man-made flask, a human invention. But David, he was anointed with oil from a natural horn. This detail points to a massive shift, away from the kingdom based on a man-made choice that didn't work out to a new era rooted in a natural, divinely chosen king who was valued for what was on the inside.
I mean, talk about an underdog story, right? David was the definition of it. While his older brothers are all being lined up and presented to the prophet, David's not even in the room. He's out in the fields with the sheep. He's the youngest son, a simple musician completely overlooked by his own family. But, as we're about to see, that was his greatest qualification. And this is the whole key right here. It was David's heart for worship, something he developed while he was all alone in the fields playing his instruments, that held the key. See,
His anointing wasn't just about picking a new leader. It was about breathing a whole new spirit into the nation, a spirit of humility and real connection. It changed the entire atmosphere of the kingdom. This one act is what activated the divine plan, all because of the character of this one unlikely kid. All right, so let's zoom out for a second and look at the whole picture. We're going to connect all three of these lives and see the full, just breathtaking legacy of faith that all began with one woman's simple, heartfelt prayer.
So when you put it all together, you see it's really a story about these three interconnected lives: Hannah, Samuel, and David. It's just this powerful picture of how one person's devotion and sacrifice can lay the groundwork for the next, building this amazing chain of purpose across generations. So there it is. That's the ripple effect, laid out plain and simple. Hannah's sacrifice is what made Samuel's life of service even possible. Samuel's obedience then put him in the exact right place to anoint the right king, and that led directly to David's kingdom, which would become the most celebrated era in Israel's history. It's a plan that unfolded quietly, generation by generation. And that really brings us to the core message of this whole thing. The story of Hannah, Samuel, and David is just a timeless example of this idea. It shows that absolutely anyone, no matter who they are, can be part of something world-changing when they just respond with faith. So as we wrap this up, it really leaves you with a question to think about. We've just seen how one woman's vow echoed for generations. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What small act of faith in your own life could be the start of something you can't even begin to imagine? What ripple will your journey start?